I'd like to call the meeting to order. There was no closed meeting. There's no report for that. Item D, we have a moment of silence. Oh, sorry, roll call. All members of council are here. Mayor McNamara is absent due to a personal leave. We can have a moment of silence at this time.
Oh, Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love, in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north, strong and free. From
Yeah, our land acknowledgement was read out earlier this evening. Are there any disclosure pecuniary interests from members of council? Seeing none, we'll have duly noted. Item H, the minutes. Could we have a motion for a regular council meeting, May 23rd, public council meeting, May 23rd, and the public council meeting on the East Town Line Drain, May 23rd. Moved by Councillor Dorner, supported by Councillor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed, and that carries. There's no supplementary agenda items. We move on to delegations. Annually, the town celebrates Local Government Week to engage our local youth to learn about the key role that local governments play in helping to define the character, priorities, amenities, and physical makeup of communities. As part of the Local Government Week activities, the town invited elementary students to participate in an essay and poster contest around the theme of what makes parks great. Students were asked to write an essay about what features they would include in an ideal park that is suitable for all ages, or design their ideal park with features suitable to all ages. Many excellent submissions were received, and we would like to thank all the students who participated, making it a difficult task to select the winners. Tonight, council is pleased to recognize the contest winners. First place essay contest winner is Deanna Roberts. Deanna, please come on up to the front, please. Congratulations. Deanna is a grade 6 student at St. Peter's School. Not only that, but also a former student of mine, where I was principal there at St. Peter, retired recently. So happy to see when I recognize the name, I knew exactly the caliber of essay that you write. So at this time, Deanna, I'm going to ask you to read to all of us your essay.
Parks by Deanna Roberts at St. Peter's School. Hi, today we'll be talking about what features I would include to build an indoor park that is open 24/7. First, I want to add a rock climbing court for the older kids. It would be grade 5 and up. I think a lot of people would like this because it improves your brain and physical strength. Also, it is fun to race to the top like a sport. You should really try it. Next, I would also want to add something for the little kids. Kids love to play in water and splash around. So I would like to add a splash pad. You can also keep cool on a very hot summer day with your friends. Last but not least, I would add beach volleyball courts, including 5 volleyballs and a couple of nets. Grade 4 to grade 8 would like to play volleyball with friends and improve their volleyball skills. I love volleyball myself, so I would like this at my park. I would like to include some seats so you can keep watch to make sure your kid doesn't get hurt. But you don't have to stay with your kid because there are 17 supervisors to keep watch and help with the rock climbing. I would include an indoor art area to express your creativity for art. There will be all different kinds of art supplies, so you will never get bored and you can learn how to do art better. This is my favorite area of the whole indoor park. Another thing I would add is soccer nets because a lot of people in my class play soccer and they all love soccer. Lastly, I would like to add a small cafe to eat if you get hungry, but no need to bring food or any money. All of the food is free. Also, we have all the food you can think of, like pizza, burgers, pasta, salad, and much more. That is what features I would have in an indoor park for all ages.
Excellent, well done. Before you go, I know Ms. Geniak, our Parks, would like to say a few words to acknowledge, because I think we have a future employee here in the Parks Department coming up.
Yes, well, thank you through the deputy. That's awesome. I also love scrambling to the top of a rock climbing wall, and I like to think of myself as being like Spider-Man when I do so. So we'll have to have a conversation about putting in something like that. Congratulations on your win. Good job.
Could I ask members of council to come up? We're going to present Deanna with a little gift and maybe take a group photo, please. Thank you. So as stated earlier, the first place winner will get to be the mayor for the day. So again, she'll be Mayor Roberts, and that'll be decided with Ms. Mayor McNamara on the date and activities that Deanna will be able to participate. So thank you. We also have a second place essay contest winner. Unfortunately, Brock Donay is unable to be here this evening. Brock also is a student from St. Peter's School. Unfortunately, cannot be here tonight. We extend kudos to Brock on his well-written essay. Next, we have another winner, a contest winner for Local Government Week regarding poster artist. We'd like to call upon Matilda Schaefer to come on up, please. So Matilda is a grade 5 student at St. Pius X School. And we're going to ask Matilda if she can just explain a few words of her poster design to us. Just push the button. There we go.
So in my park, we have a concession stand in the middle with 4 shops that you can rent out and sell whatever you sell. And then you also have playgrounds up here and flower fields and here with little lakes.
Quite the artist, Matilda. Job well done. And again, I'll ask Ms. Geniak to say a few words.
Thank you. Congratulations. It's a really great design. We like to call this placemaking. And this is, you have captured the ideas that we call the power of 10. Every great place should have 10 things to do in it. And you've certainly designed a space and place that would be super fun. And we just might borrow some of these ideas for some of our future park designs. Thank you very much. Congratulations.
Thank you. And Matilda, I know you have the G's there. Your grandfather's here in attendance, and he used to be the former park superintendent of Sandwich South Township back a long time ago. So great job. And thank you, Mr. Schaefer, for joining us this evening and the Schaefer family. So if you don't mind, come up and we'll take another picture with members of council. Thank you. Congrats again to our local government winners. At this time, we're going to continue with our council agenda. You feel free to stay and observe our council proceedings, or you may be dismissed at this time. It's up to you. So we'll leave that up to your choice. Thank you. Okay, we have a. Okay, we'll continue on with our delegations. At this time, I'd like to call upon Katie Stamler, who's the water quality scientist, source water protection project manager for the Essex Region Conservation Authority. And she'll be presenting her 2022 annual progress report. Katie?
Thank you. Through you, Debbie. So I don't think somebody's got my slides, right? You got them? Okay, you can go ahead to the next slide there. So just a super brief overview of what source water protection is. Source water protection came into place after the Walkerton tragedy in 2000. And people in that town are still suffering the consequences of that well contamination that happened. There was an investigation at that time that listed 121 recommendations for ensuring something like that never happened again. The Clean Water Act fulfills 12 of those recommendations, and it's part of the multi-barrier approach. So the Clean Water Act is protecting our sources of drinking water before they ever even reach our water treatment plants. So how do we try to stop those contaminations before they even happen? We can go to the next slide, please. So there's a bunch of key players involved with source water protection. We have our source protection committee that's made up of 15 people. There's 5 municipal representatives, 5 industry representatives, and then 5 members of the public at large. And they're the ones that I present all of the technical reports to. So I sit at my desk and I do all the technical work, and then I bring it to this source protection committee. And by and large, they always find something to tell me that I haven't thought of. So they're a really good vetting system for all of that work. The Source Protection Authority can refer both to the staff at the Conservation Authority and also to IRCA's Board of Directors, which acts as the Source Protection Authority as well. And their job is to appoint members to the SPC and provide the administrative support, and responsible for all of the plan revisions. Sorry, the smoky air is really terrible for anybody with breathing issues. And then we have our implementing bodies, and that's includes municipalities like yourselves. So the implementing bodies are the folks that are responsible for implementing the policies within the source protection plan. Next slide, please. So the Essex Region Source Protection Area, we have several intakes. There's 2 in Lake St. Clair, 2 in the Detroit River, and then we have 3 in Lake Erie. And then this map was made several years ago and shows sort of the boundaries of where our water intakes are. So the different colors there show where the service areas are for the different intakes. And we service 11 municipalities. And really the main thing that we've identified as a significant drinking water threat is the handling and storage of large volumes of liquid fuel. And then we've also identified microcystin, which is the toxin produced by harmful algal blooms, as a drinking water issue. Currently within our plan, that's listed as Lake Erie only, but we're working on the identification of it as an issue in Lake St. Clair as well, and possibly in the Detroit River. Next slide, please. So these just show where the vulnerable areas are. So the most vulnerable areas are within a 1 kilometer radius around the drinking water intake. And then that next area is the IPZ2, which is a 2-hour time of travel. And then we also have here in the Essex region that much larger that yellow area is our event-based area. It's a modeling project done to say, if there is a spill within any one of these areas of fuel, the benzene within that fuel has the potential to make its way to a drinking water intake. And we have a much more extensive event-based area than any other region. And a lot of that just has to do with the Essex region. It's very flat. We have so many drains and ditches. So the event-based area is a 120-meter buffer around any water course. Next slide, please. So every year we do our annual progress report, and every year you guys invite me to speak to you, and I really appreciate it. And I don't know if you know this, but you're the only municipality that asked me to come and speak to you. So thank you for doing that. So these reports are generated every year based on information gathered that's due from the implementing bodies by February 1st. And our reports cover the previous calendar year. Next slide, please. So we have a few different places where we provide a score, and the Source Protection Committee reviews that information that we give to them, and then they determine what the scores should be. And those scores can be progressing well, satisfactory, or limited progress. So you can see those are our scores there. So overall scores progressing well, implementation progress is progressing well, provincial progress is progressing well, and highlighted there is that we've lowered the score for municipal progress to limited progress. And I'll go into the details as to why the committee came to that decision. And then our risk management plans are also progressing well. Next slide, please. So implementation progress, you can see year over year, we've really increased the number of policies that we consider to be fully implemented. So at this point, we're sitting at with 86% of our policies considered to be fully implemented, with 4 that are in progress. We'll go to the next slide, please. So we moved 9 policies from in progress to fully implemented this year. These are all risk management policies. And we did that by looking through aerial photography in the IPZ1s, where these things are, where there's specific significant drinking water threat activities, determine that those activities do not occur and that they would not occur in the future. So we're able to move those policies to fully implemented. We also completed the implementation of the fuel policy that we've been working on for several years. We had to issue the last 2 remaining risk management plans had to be issued by order because the communication broke down with the landowner. The 4 policies that are in progress are storage of hazardous waste and pesticide and application of pesticide. Those policies are going to be updated in our section 36 update. So we're sort of waiting for those policy updates to continue on with that implementation. Next slide, please. The province implemented a plan for reviewing new ECAs in 2018, and we know that they're keeping up with that. They report to us every year. In 2022, they examined 4 applications for wastewater or sewage works and 1 application for an aggregate license. And none of those were determined to have significant threat activity, so they didn't have to update those ECAs. Next slide, please. So the municipal progress, we've since 2018 been listing municipal progress as progressing well, and the committee determined to lower that score to limited progress. The reason being that Tecumseh has completed their official plan amendment, so this isn't necessarily towards you guys, which is always funny that you're the only ones that invite me here. But many of the municipalities have not completed their official plan amendments, and we've seen no progress on them, or we've seen some versions of their official plan amendments, and we've gone back and forth with them, but they've never completed them. And now with Bill 23 and various other things, we now know that some of the municipalities are going to be holding back and waiting to see what Bill 23 has to do with things. So this can be bringing source water into an official plan doesn't need to be difficult. It doesn't need to be part of an overhaul of the official plan. So we're hoping that this will move some of the municipalities across the goal line with that and get the official plan amendments done. In terms of implementing policies, the municipalities all delegated the Conservation Authority as risk management officials. So we implement those policies on their behalf. So that work is completed. Next slide, please. So our risk management plans, as I said, we completed those last two by order. So we now have 100% of the existing significant drinking water threats addressed through risk management plans, which is great and definitely makes our lives much, much easier. And we have the Section 59 process in place. So we know that our municipal staff are reviewing applications as they come through. So we know whether or not we need to issue new risk management plans. Next slide, please. I think I've gone over most of this. Yeah, so we did do one new risk management plan for a fuel tank for a greenhouse in 2022. And since 2015, we've established 17 new risk management plans for new builds. Next slide, please. In 2022, we started doing some compliance visits. So for risk management plans that already exist, we're going back to those individuals and just making sure that they have all their paperwork in place. And these are sort of checklists that they can send us back documents confirming that they're doing all the things that they're supposed to be doing. Next slide, please. We also offer municipal training as required. So often, I'll either ask municipalities if they want it, or I'll make the offer available. So I've done this annually for some municipalities, and others that are, they have the same staff, they don't need a new training session. But what I did also this year is I recorded a training session, and I made it available on our YouTube channel so that I can send that out to municipal staff so that they can watch that, at any point in time. And we also updated what you see there, the more complicated. You guys are used to seeing the EBA flow chart if any of you deal with this. This one is for the Windsor IPZ2. So we are Windsor IPZ1 and IPZ2. So we had to do an update to that because they have more significant drinking water threat activities. Next slide, please. So again, this is, Tecumseh has the event-based area within it. So you've got the handling and storage of fuel as a significant drinking water threat. We established 2 risk management plans, and we haven't had to do any more since 2016 because you don't have many of those activities taking place here. Next slide, please. So continuing on in 2023, I actually had our risk management official has moved on to another position. So I'm covering until we can get another person certified. So I'm your risk management official now. And hopefully in the fall, we'll have somebody new doing that. So we'll be continuing the compliance and monitoring for those Section 59 applications and reviewing requests and responding to developers. Next slide, please. So I also like to take this opportunity to talk to you guys about the harmful algal blooms as well. So you can follow along with the Lake Erie HAB Bulletin. They put those out once a week. And the HAB Bulletin uses the phosphorus loads out of the Maumee River, which we know is a pretty good indicator of how severe the harmful algal bloom in the western basin of Lake Erie will be every year. The severity of the bloom is, when they talk about severity, they talk about the size of the bloom. We don't have the ability to predict the toxicity of the bloom. There's lots of very smart people trying to figure that out, but right now we can't figure out how to project that because there's a lot of different factors that go into play. So this year they're predicting it's like a 2.5 to a 5.5 on their scale of 10. So there's a lot of uncertainty in there, right? And a lot of that is because they're working with a suite of models, and so they have a range that they predict. And then we've just had a whole bunch of rain, so that might increase that scale again. Their final forecast will be on Thursday, June 29th, which you can watch live. You can sign up on the Ohio State University runs that if you're interested. Next slide, please. So on the water quality side of things, we've had a few different monitoring programs that have been in place for a while. Unfortunately, in this current fiscal year, we've lost a lot of our funding for water quality monitoring. So kind of taking this time to write up some reports and work on source water protection a little bit more. But I wanted to talk to you about a couple of key findings from our water quality monitoring. In our agricultural areas, we have a stream that we've been monitoring since 2016. That green line is the provincial water quality objective of 0.03 milligrams per liter. You can see that the concentrations are always pretty much high above that, but that's pretty normal for this area because of our land use. And the lesson that we learned from this is that the highest total phosphorus concentrations happen during the non-growing season during rain events. And that's common and what we would expect, because when rain hits bare soil, it picks up all the sediment and brings it out to a stream. Next slide, please. We also monitor our greenhouse influence streams in Leamington and Kingsville. So the graph in your top right is showing the greenhouse versus non-greenhouse. So greenhouse is in the light gray and the non-greenhouse influence streams are in the darker color. And we know that year over year that the greenhouse concentrations can be up to 20 times higher than they are in non-greenhouse influence streams. The graph below that showing the increasing trend, we see the growth in the greenhouse sector is moving northward on Highway 77, which is still within the municipality of Leamington, but now is in the headwaters of the Ruscombe River, which flows down into Lakeshore and then out into Lake St. Clair. So we started monitoring in one branch of the Ruscombe that has that greenhouse sector growth, and the other branch of the Ruscombe that does not have greenhouse sector growth. And then we have another site further downstream. And we see a significant increasing trend, both where the greenhouses are and at that downstream site, but not in the agricultural site. So we didn't really need this additional canary in the coal mine because Sturgeon Creek told us this story several years ago, but we have another one. So we can see very clearly that there's an increasing trend and downstream degradation as a result of the greenhouse sector growth. The bar chart there on the left, so recall the lesson from agricultural streams is that highest concentrations happen during non-growing season during rain events. In a greenhouse influence stream, the highest concentrations are during base flow conditions during the growing season. And then we actually see a dilution factor when it rains. So that tells us that these streams are behaving like they have point sources on them. Next slide, please. So source water going forward in 2023, we're working on the really big comprehensive section 36 update. So that's what I'm putting all of my time and focus on. We're updating almost every policy because the 2021 director technical rules change all the nuances of all the threat categories. So we have to update all the policies and that'll go to consultation probably late fall this year. And then we're also doing that reevaluation of microcystin as a drinking water issue and looking at climate risk assessments and of course doing AODA compliance. Next slide, please. And you can always learn more by going to our website, and our SPC made a short video as well to explain what the drinking water signs are. That's it.
Thank you very much, Katie. Can I have a motion to move up the report that's in the council agenda? Moved by Councillor Jobin, supported by Councillor Higginson. And that report is for Mr. Bartnick. It's recommended that report source water protection 2022 annual progress report be received. So move on the motion to move it up. It was Councillor Jobin, supported by Councillor Higginson. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Now we have a motion to receive the 2022 annual progress report. Moved by Councillor Houston, supported by Councillor Dorner. Any questions? Councillor Houston.
Not a question, just a comment. Thank you for all the work and everything that you do. Some of the data that you present is eye-opening, but please continue to do all the great things that you do. So thank you.
Okay. Ms. Evans.
Thank you, Katie, for your presentation. I just wanted to ask, in the absence of the other official plan policies not being updated in other jurisdictions, what tools are available to you as the risk management officer to still maintain safe drinking water supplies at their source?
Thank you, through you, Deputy Chair or Deputy Mayor. So the risk management duties are separate from the official plan. So our ability to implement the policies as through risk management are unaffected by the official plans. The official plans, the amendments are simply putting maps really into the official plans that say these are where the vulnerable areas are. And their municipal staff are trained, and that mapping is supposed to be incorporated into everybody's geocortex and whatever else, right? So that process is happening. So the official plan amendment is really just sort of a last piece and doesn't really necessarily have any negative impact on protection of source water.
Okay. Other questions? We have a mover and a support, seconder, all in favor? Opposed, that carries. Thank you, Katie. Have a good evening. Thank you, Mr. Dupuy, as well. I know you work closely with Katie there. Thank you. And we have communications for informations. We have items 1 through 8. If we have a motion to receive, moved by Councillor Tonya, supported by Councillor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Are there any items that council would like to pull? If not, we'll move on to communications for action. We have the Association of Municipalities of Ontario regarding navigating the road to resilience. There's a motion that the mayor and members of council be authorized to attend AMO's Navigating Road Resilient Risk Management Symposium on October 4th and 5th at a cost of $550 in accordance with the town's professional development policy and subject to funding in the 2023 budget. Motion by Councillor Tonio, supported by Councillor Houston. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Moving on to committee minutes. We do not have any, right? Reports, community and rec services. We have the Lakewood Park North Boardwalk replacement. We turn it over to Ms. Geniak, who has the report that can share with council.
Thank you, Deputy. Through you to members of council. I'm here tonight to speak to CRS 2023-11 and recommending that this report be received and that the Lakewood Park North Boardwalk replacement is outlined in this report in the amount of $165,000 plus non-refundable HSTB authorized for funding from the park's life cycle reserve. And just to quickly review the circumstances, June 5th, there was a minor fire on the wooden boardwalk at Lakewood Park North. And thanks to quick responders, a broader fire event was prevented. However, when we did go and do a more detailed inspection of the boardwalk, longstanding issues with regard to the quality of the boardwalk itself were recognized and noted. And we, in fact, started to pull some boards out, and it was determined that the substructural supports were also rotting. So at that time, it became not only an issue of solving for vandalism, but really became an issue of solving for a public safety issue. So we were able to obtain the proper quotes through the emergency procurement procedure and have since remediated the problem by removing all of the boards. The remainder of the concrete should be completed Wednesday, Thursday, and the fencing should come down and the boardwalk will be up and ready for use as of Monday, July 3rd. So I'm happy to take any questions if there are any.
Yep. Questions from members of council. Councillor Dorner.
Through you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, with the recent vandalism on the boardwalk, have we looked into any preventative vandalism measures, such as like security cameras? Maybe this is also a question for Mr. Firth as well.
We'll go count for Mr. Firth first and Mrs. Jean.
Yes, I'll respond with regard to what we're doing right now in our parks. So through Deputy to Councillor Dorner. So we do have surveillance cameras in some of our parks, and Mr. Firth will speak to their location. We don't have a capacity or capability to be monitoring activity in our parks 24/7, 365. We have undertaken some actions in Lakewood Park area over this past summer recently, because we are aware that there are a group of young guys who are hanging out in the parking lot at Lakewood Park Park South. And we actually have the commissioners in there currently Fridays, Saturdays, Sunday evenings from 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. in order to deter activity. We're also engaged in quite a good conversation and relationship with our colleagues at the OPP, who have increased monitoring, not only at that park, but at many other parks who we typically have issues with, including the parks on St. Gregory, where the St. Clair Beach Community Center is located, and McAuliffe Park. Those are parks that we typically have seen vandalism occur in. People do tend to take some pleasure and privilege out of looking after our washroom facilities. So, we do try to do what we can in order to, monitor and clean up after folks as best as possible. I'll defer to Mr. Firth with regard to security measures regarding cameras.
Sure, thank you. Through Deputy Mayor to Councillor Dorner, your question is timely as we have a video surveillance policy coming before council in July. Within that policy, it identifies many of our facilities that currently have video surveillance and the reasons why they're at those facilities. In the past, we have had successes with convictions from the footage taken from those. But at the end of the day, we have hundreds of acres of municipal property. And in this case, in this specific incident, to have a camera at that spot on the boardwalk is something we wouldn't have fathomed. We reviewed the footage. There is video surveillance at that site, mostly around the building proper. So that being said, this was out of camera range for this specific incident, but where we know that there is potential for vandalism or where there's a history of vandalism, we do have other methods to deter vandals from repeating at those sites with remote cameras and that kind of thing. And we have had some success in identifying individuals who have perpetrated those events over time. But yeah, more detail coming to council at the second meeting in July with the full policy for all of our sites, why we collect MFIPA and the records that are held within the recorders and that kind of thing. So, but again, due diligence and reaching out to our residents to keep, to be part of the solution and letting us know. Nobody has a crystal ball to tell us where to put the cameras, but again, forewarned is forearmed, and with input through our various channels, we're welcome to investigate other opportunities in that regard.
Any other questions, Councillor Houston?
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. To Ms. Geniak, thank you for the report. Thank you to our fire department and everyone to respond as quickly as we did. It's beyond disappointing, right, that these actions are taking place in the community. But thanks to the quick work, it wasn't it could have been much worse. And the wood that was there, it looked great, had an ambiance about it, but I do think we're doing the right thing in replacing it with the cement that we are. And I've noticed a couple comments of residents asking when it's going to open, and I know the residents are extremely disappointed that we had to close it down, but we had no other option. So the Optimist fishing derby was canceled as a result of this, and that is an activity that I know is well attended, and there were many disappointed people because of the actions of the individuals who did this. But thank you for getting it turned around so quickly. I actually expected that it would be closed much longer, but thank you for doing everything that you have, and that it will reopen July 3rd, I think you said. So thank you to you and Chief Bondi, to our fire department and everyone else who's involved to get it back open as quickly as possible.
No other further questions. We have a motion to approve the recommendations, moved by Councillor Higginson, supported by Councillor Tonio. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. And next item, we have item B, the Cata Library renovation project tender award. I believe that's yours, Ms. Geniak.
Yes, thank you, Deputy. Through you to Council, this is CRS 2023-12, the CATA Library Renovation Project, the tender award. We're excited that this project has moved to tender and we can actually get underway with this exciting renovation project. So the recommendations in front of you are that the tender in the amount of 1,234,185, excluding HST, be awarded to Vince Farrow Construction Limited. The bylaw 2023-75 be given first, second, third, and final reading to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement, satisfactory in form to the town solicitor with Vince Farrow Construction Limited. And further, that the total budget requirement of 1,234,185, which includes an increase in the amount of $234,185, be approved for funding from the Life Cycle Building Reserve. And furthermore, that administration be authorized to establish a memorandum of understanding for cost sharing between the town of Tecumseh and the Essex County Library as follows: 876,136.60 to the town of Tecumseh, 376,772.00 to Essex County Library. I just want to reference that there is a slight overage here. We've listed $234,000. When this budget was originally pulled together, was nearly 2 years ago. And we think that this is a reasonable amount of cost overage for the amount of work that needs to be done in that facility in order to ensure AODA compliance. So hence the recommendation here for that additional funding to be approved from the Life Cycle Building Reserve, which is there for purposes such as this. The agreement with regard to the split, the 70-30 split between the town of Tecumseh and the Essex County Library, has been a long-standing agreement. And we will be working together to codify that agreement in a memorandum of understanding after the approval of the report in front of you here tonight, and be bringing that report forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any questions from members of council? Thank you, Ms. Geniak. I know the library board and through Adam Gregg, the CEO, he's very excited to get the moves. He's got great plans for the libraries and what he was really worried about this budget, the tender coming in. And, like you said, 2 years ago, the prices have gone up. I've seen a lot more overages, especially when you're doing capital works, like in this case here. So I think, we can stay within budget and based on timelines, it's going to be a nice building after when it's said and done and, long overdue for our town. So I have a moved by question. Yep. Councillor Higginson, a question.
Thank you very much. Just very quickly, can you remind me again of the anticipated timelines that we're looking at?
Yeah, through the deputy to you, Councillor Higginson. The library is actually going to remain open in their current location until approximately July 12th. And the week after, they'll be closed. They'll be reopening on July 24th at 1240 Lanoux Street. The project itself is anticipated to take anywhere from up to 1 year or perhaps slightly longer. But again, it'll be determined on the availability of workers, et cetera, through the contractor. But the contractor has given us an assurance that a 1 year timeframe, which was the original suggested timeframe, should be doable and achievable for the type of project that we're talking about.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. I know with summer coming up, I've got kids that are going to be out of school and looking for something to do. It's great that we're going to be able to, say, for that small period of time, maintain access to the library. And it's such an asset for us. And I'm grateful to see that not only are we maintaining access for everybody in the community, but also we're upgrading what we currently have for future enjoyment. So I'm pretty excited about this project. Thanks.
Very good. We have a motion moved by Councillor Dorner, supported by Councillor Houston. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to Legislative Clerk Services. We have the Bylaw Retail Business Holiday Act. Mr. OJ.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. And to council, way back in 2009, council first approved bylaw 2009-01 to permit retail business establishments to be open on certain public holidays in the town. The current form of this bylaw essentially provides for a partial exemption from the Retail Business Holiday Act, which requires businesses to be closed on any public holidays unless they are exempt by the act or exempt via municipal bylaw. The exemptions to the act themselves are for specific retailers that provide certain necessary services. And the current bylaw 2009-001, as currently drafted, only provides for a partial exemption for up to 5 of the statutory holidays, which at the time matched up with what was at that point the legislation. However, in 2016, near the end of 2016, the province proclaimed proclaimed into force a new section of the Act, which essentially permits municipalities to allow their retailers to be completely exempt from the application of the Act, as long as the municipality designates through bylaw at least one day as a required holiday closing. So since the time of the 2016 amendment, this question of a blanket exemption from the Act has not been brought before this council. This issue came up recently. We had a local retailer recently contact us seeking clarification as to whether their particular business was exempt either from the Act or from the bylaw. When we reviewed both the legislation and the Act, it appeared that this retailer did not apply for an exemption. And so that led to administration reviewing the issue and looking at the fact that there are several other municipalities out there that have provided for more extended of an exemption, including up to a blanket exemption. So administration is asking council if it wishes to consider an amendment to the current bylaw to provide for a blanket exemption, or potentially to extend from the way it currently reads, which, like I said, only provides for an exemption for up to 5 of the holidays. We did consult with the Town of Tecumseh Business Improvement Area, and the BIA at a meeting held just last week was supportive of the notion of the town providing for a blanket exemption, and one that would provide for flexibility for hours as well. And I believe attached to this report is a draft copy of the minutes from that BIA meeting last week. So in the recommendations, recommending that council receive the report and give consideration to bylaw 2023-066, and that's a bylaw to amend 2009-01 to provide for retail business establishments to be open on holidays, and that's for consideration for third readings. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Very good. Any questions? A motion moved by Councillor Tonya, supported by Councillor Higginson. All in favor? Opposed? Carries. Next, we have the Town of Tecumseh procedural bylaw that's come before us this evening. And again, that's Mr. OJ. If you want to present that report as well. Thank you.
Thank you again, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and to council. Back on February 14th of this year, council received and supported report LCS 2301 entitled Procedural Bylaws Subcommittee, which recommended the convening of a subcommittee to review and consider the current procedural bylaw together with the recommendations of the previous subcommittee that was convened back in 2021, and as well review the feedback received from the clerk's department service delivery review. Council at that time appointed the mayor, Councillor Jobin and Councillor Higginson to serve on the 2023 subcommittee and to carry out the mandate. The committee met on 3 occasions in the winter and early spring. Discussions were held on the changes to the bylaw that had been recommended or suggested in the past, a review of the procedural approach of other council bodies, together with general discussion on the current state of municipal council meetings and some of the challenges or issues. And as well, and importantly, each of the respective council members themselves shared their own experiences, both as a councillor and as members serving on other councils, boards, and committees. As a result, the following are the major changes recommended for the procedural bylaw, and I'll just go through each quickly in turn here. The first item is the introduction of a consent agenda item on the general agenda itself. And the purpose of that essentially is to streamline or facilitate an otherwise heavy agenda load or voluminous agenda, and save council time for addressing other items that require more deliberation or discussion. So the consent agenda is basically designed for those routine items, those informational reports, those non-contentious matters. Those matters are grouped together as one common motion, not requiring further discussion or debate. So as each agenda is published, the published agenda would have the list of recommended items under consent agenda. The chair of the meeting would then ask the councillors to either confirm that as the consent agenda or possibly remove any items if a councillor wants to speak to those items, or perhaps a councillor has a conflict on one of those items, and that matter would automatically be pulled and placed back into its regular spot onto the agenda. Second change, we made some language changes to the role of the deputy mayor and council members. Just to provide a little more clarity, the current bylaw discussed the role of head of council and the councillors generally. So we added some clarifications dealing with what the role of the deputy mayor is, and together with the role of the councillors at the meetings themselves. Third proposed addition to the agenda itself is update from county council and boards. So as we all know, the mayor and deputy mayor sit at the county council. And other council members also serve on some of the various other county committees and regional boards. So this spot on the agenda would provide for that opportunity to provide a brief update for the public and for fellow council members on items or matters under discussion that certainly could have an impact or effect on the town of Tecumseh. Another adoption of bylaws at special meetings of council. So the procedural bylaw has been amended to allow for the possibility of bylaws being passed at special meetings. And the intent behind this provision was to provide for an opportunity, perhaps where there's a sense of urgency with respect to that bylaw. And if there's a sense of urgency and the matter can't wait to be considered by council before the next regular meeting, then there would be an allowance for that at the special meeting. Order of business, some changes were made to provide a little more flexibility in the clerk's ability to change the order in a business on the agendas. For example, this evening, a resolution was required to move up a report during their second delegation this evening. Under the new change, that would be done automatically without the need for a resolution. Confirmatory bylaw. Confirmatory bylaw is normally passed at the conclusion of all council meetings, confirming the actions of council taken at that meeting. And essentially, the adoption of that confirmatory bylaw covers each resolution and any other actions that council had made. And it confirms that so that every decision will have the same force and effect as if each and every one of those actions had each received their own resolution or their own bylaw. The new procedural bylaw provides for a confirmatory bylaw to also be passed at the special meetings. And then there were some changes proposed relating to delegations, the holding of meetings, and the public's attendance at meetings. So just to go through a few of these right now, delegates will be expected to appear in person at the meetings unless they live or work out of the county or require accommodation to appear electronically due to personal circumstances or emergencies. Delegates will need to formally register with the clerk's department if they wish to speak at a meeting of council. And while that's not a new rule per se, it will be a little bit different in that our delegation request form is being modified as we speak. So the form will not only have the particulars in order to take in and receive the delegation, but it will have some requirements, essentially rules of conduct or rules of conduct relating to appearing as a delegate before council or appearing as a member of the public in attendance at a council meeting. Timelines for becoming a delegation have been relaxed such that a delegation for a special meeting, or if a delegate's looking to speak specifically to an item on a regular council meeting, that deadline is 24 hours before. So that's been clarified. To some extent, we've been doing that in practice since COVID, but it's been formalized in the bylaw. Delegation specific to a public statutory meeting will still need, and we're still requesting registration with the clerk. But the timeline for those delegations can register as late as 3 p.m. on the date of the meeting itself in order to facilitate the consultation part. And then further change relating to attendance at meetings. Members of the public attending in person at a council meeting will also be required to sign in with the clerk and agree to abide by the delegation request and requirements form. So there'll be a specific sign in for those attending the council meetings. And again, part of the sign in when they register will be an acknowledgement that they agree to abide by the rules of conduct that will specify in that form. And that form's we're working on that form as we speak. And we're hoping to introduce that likely at the first meeting in September. Just a few other items here. We did some clarifications regarding certain motions, provided more in detail on the rules surrounding some of those motions, including adding just a general provision to clarify that any procedural matters not specifically addressed in the bylaw will be addressed by resorting to rules of parliamentary procedure contained in Robert's Rules of Order. Notices of motion. The current bylaw, it was felt, didn't provide sufficient guidance surrounding the use of notices of motion. So the clerk's office attempted to provide some more clarity in regard to using a notice of motion. So essentially, instead of introducing a matter for the first time and actioning it all at the same meeting, the general intent of a notice of motion is to provide that advance notice to the public at a council meeting, advising that council will consider or possibly action the item at the next council meeting. The notice would first be read at the meeting under the notices of motion section of the agenda. And the notice of motion as presented will then be considered by council at the next subsequent regular meeting. However, the one exception that we've inserted into notices of motion is that if the notice of motion is received by the clerk well enough ahead of time so that we're able to include it on the published agenda, meaning the agenda would be published on the Thursday, so that in essence, the public would have essentially 5 days advance notice of that notice of motion. If it's received that early and goes on the published agenda, then council, if it chooses, could decide to action that notice of motion that same evening, if it so chooses to do so. Or it could fall back on the standard rule, which means it would be presented only again at that first meeting and brought back for action at the second meeting. And then just a couple other items here. Some of the language around new business items were introduced, and with language stating that new business items should only be actioned by resolution if the matter is considered minor or urgent. And then under voting, the new proposed bylaw provides some further clarifications on the voting process, essentially to properly reflect how council currently considers and passes its bylaws. We also provided a little bit of clarification on recorded votes. The current bylaw under recorded votes only allowed a request for a recorded vote after the first vote on the matter. So essentially a recount. The change as drafted will allow for that recorded vote to be requested prior to the vote taking place. So attached to this report is a draft version of the proposed bylaw with changes that have been highlighted. It's proposed that council just provide consideration for this provisionally with 2 readings this evening to allow for time if there's further feedback or suggestions as far as changes. Certainly would welcome any items from or any comments from the subcommittee members. And so that's the other reason, so that all the subcommittee members can provide comments either at this meeting or at the July 11th meeting. And then, so again, proposed for 2 readings. Part of this as well, I think as we head towards the fall, assuming this bylaw is brought forward and passed, would be at some point an introduction of a council workshop in order to provide a little bit more detail on some of the language and some of the procedural items dealing with the new changes. That's it, Mr. Deputy Mayor. If council has any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Thank you, Mr. OJ, for well detailed, and I want to turn it over to council if they have any questions at this time. Councilor Higginson.
Thanks very much, and through you. I won't belabor the point. I think Mr. Rozier did a great job of kind of capturing what the subcommittee did. I want to thank my subcommittee members as well, and Mr. Rozier and Ms. Alexander for I think really good discussion about what we're kind of sitting at and dealing with now, and what's coming in the future, and what our experiences have been at different boards on behalf of and in representation of the public. And what I tried to keep in mind, and what I appreciate in all the references to all the changes, is we've had discussions in this room, and I'm sure all of us have had discussions lately about, low voter turnout and how do we get voters to come out. And I think part of it is how they feel that they are represented and how they are connected to the things that happen in this room, and the actions that result from those. And I'm glad that what we've done is provide some transparency and some connection to members of the public through some of the changes that we've made, and made it more transparent for council to understand how we work together and how council and administration work together. Always grateful for when that can be spelled out in a way that is in plain language to the public we serve, and to all of us, so we can understand each other and work together. So grateful for the work that we've done, and happy to support the first and second reading tonight.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councilor Houston.
Thank you, and through you to the committee members and clerks and everyone who was involved for the revisions. I see a lot of some efficiencies that will come out of this, and transparencies for the public. The one question I have, and it might be very minor, but on some other agendas, I see non-agenda business, and we have like new business. So my question is really, if we have like a community announcement, right? Or we have something just to generally bring up. I know in the past, it's always been in new business, but is that the appropriate use and time to do that? Or should we have a non-agenda portion on it? I'm just a question to make sure that we're doing it at the right time, or where we should be for those types of things.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Councillor Houston. I think it depends upon the individual council. I've seen in the past some of these items to be brought up under new business. I've also seen, as you referred to, a specific agenda item. Sometimes it's called reports or announcements from the council members, but with the same ideal in mind, that that's the opportunity for a roundtable, if you will, for council to comment on things that they're currently working on, usually non-contentious items that are commented on, and usually items that are not actioned. And so I think it's up to this council. I think it could still possibly be used under new business. The comments in the procedural bylaw regarding new business was more to, some language reminding council that the intention of that point in the agenda really isn't to action those new business items unless it's urgent or something very minor that cannot be addressed, in time for the next regular meeting.
Thank you. Well, thank you again, Mr. OJ. Obviously this is going to streamline, and anytime we can review these policies, procedure, especially in terms of making these meetings more inclusive as well. There's a lot of inclusivity in here, and engaging the public is going to be well received. So thank you for that. So we have a motion to, to do the first and second? Move the recommendation. Moved by Councilor Higginson, supported by Councilor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Next one, so straightforward. We have a recommendation from the appointment of the proxy holder for shareholder for 2022 annual meeting, that Mayor McNamara be appointed proxy holder for the town to cast its shareholders' votes at the June 29th meeting, and that Tom Burton be appointed as an alternate proxy holder for the town at the shareholders meeting if Mayor McNamara is absent from the meeting, and further that the clerk be authorized to sign all necessary proxy forms to implement this resolution and forward them to the Essex Power Corporation. Have a motion moved by Councillor Tonya, supported by Councillor Higginson. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Moving on to Public Works, we have reports DMAF, Scully, St. Mark's Pump Station, and Riverside Drive Reconstruction Tender Award. Turn that over to Mr. Bartnick.
Thank you, Your Worship, and good evening, Deputy Mayor and members of council. The report before you today is for the Phase 1 Scully St. Mark's Pump Station Reconstruction Project and the award of the construction tender. So in January, earlier this year, Council approved the 2023-2027 Public Works and Environmental Services 5-year Capital Works Plan. It did include the construction of Phase 1 beginning this year in 2023. As Council also may recall, the town was successful in our 2020 application to the intake for the Disaster Mitigation and Adaptation Fund, which resulted in a grant of $10.7 million to be put forward towards this project. The tender closed on June 8th. We did have 2 contractors submitting a bid. Sterling Ridge Infrastructures Incorporated was a low tender at approximately $19.2 million. The total project cost of $23,346,900 is over budget by $11,900 from the budget that was set in January of this year. It should also be noted that the total project cost is approximately $6.3 million higher than the original 2019 DMAF estimate of $17.05 million. Administration has had discussions with DMAF on the potential for additional funding through the grant program due to inflation and market trends. Unfortunately, DMAF has advised that there are no additional funding to be offered as part of this intake. The recommendations as part of the report is that it is recommended that the tender for the Scully St. Mark's Pump Station and Riverside Drive East Reconstruction Project in the amount of $19,202,990, excluding HST, be awarded to Sterling Infrastructure Incorporated, and that bylaw 2023-74 be given first, second, third, and final reading to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement satisfactory in form of the town solicitor with Sterling Ridge Infrastructure Incorporated. And further, that funding allocations reflecting a total budget requirement of $23,346,900 with a $11,900 increase to the original allocation be accommodated from the following reserve funds. And I'll forego, I guess, listing those values there. That does summarize the report. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
Very good. You have a motion on the floor to approve the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Jobin, supported by Councillor Dorner. Any questions? Councillor Houston, go ahead.
Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Phil, if my my numbers in my mind are correct, I think this is the largest in my 9 years of a project that we've approved here, and almost close to the annual levy that we have. And but it is a significant project, and you know, we couldn't do it without the help of upper levels of government here, and you know, not surprised that, you know, it's coming in higher than what's anticipated. It could be a lot worse, but it's a project that will you know, provide huge, you know, dividends for the community. Though the type, speaking of stormwater, and The one question I have is, or I think it would be a good idea, because I have not seen either of these stations, and I would be interested to go out and see what things look like today. And then, you know, when the project is all done, you know, we can go out and see, you know, what it looks like. But you know, thank you for, you know, all the time and effort we put into this. And, you know, I recall early on, you know, putting in the applications, and, you know, here we are today awarding the tender. So, you know, looking forward to, you know, seeing ground broken, and I do know how much it will increase, right, things for us, and you know, knock off a couple big projects, stormwater, you know, management plan. So thank you.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just to add further, one of the items we were looking to schedule for the fall, and the date escapes me at the moment, October 21st, is a tour of facilities in the fall. So that was just recently scheduled, and then council will get a little bit more information on that tour as we get a bit closer.
Very good. We have a motion supported. All in favor? Opposed, and that carries. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Burtnick. Then we continue going on our agenda. Item B here, the adoption of the municipal drain bylaw, fourth concession drain. And that is Mr. Burtnick as well.
Thank you, Your Worship. So a little bit background on the report. Municipalities are to work together to repair and improve municipal drains that cross municipal boundaries. These types of projects are initiated and managed usually by a single municipality, with notifications sent to the other municipalities through the Drainage Act process. An example for this includes the recent fourth concession drain that was passed under the Town of LaSalle bylaw 8764. Through discussions with OMAFRA, it was recommended that Tecumseh Town Council needs to adopt the engineering drainage reports for the municipal drainage project that are undertaken by the neighboring municipality, but that physically exist within the town. This is required to ensure that we have the authority to undertake future maintenance works and issue assessments pursuant to the schedule of assessments within the engineering report itself. It is anticipated that LaSalle will be tendering these works out shortly, with construction commence in August this summer. Recommendations before you this evening is that report PWS 2023-45 be received, and that bylaw 2023-69 being a bylaw to adopt the engineer's drainage report for the fourth concession drain, prepared by RC Spencer Associates Incorporated and dated August 5th, 2022, for the completion of drain improvement and collection of drainage assessments as approved by the Town of LaSalle bylaw 8764, be given first, second, third, and final reading. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you. We have a motion moved by Councillor Tone, you're supported by Councillor Houston. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Mr. Burtnick. Continuing here, the next item C is the amendment to the drainage assessment schedules for works completed under section 78 of the Drainage Act.
Thank you, Your Worship. This annual report identifies those section 78 reports that were constructed in 2022 and now require amendments to the drainage assessment schedules. Section 62(1) of the Drainage Act requires a municipality to adopt a bylaw to assess out the actual cost of the drainage works to those affected landowners, excluding any non-proratable special benefits. This year, there's only one drain where the works were carried out in 2022 under section 78 of the Act. That was the McLean-Hergot drain. There was a culvert that was required and requested by the Water Division. The costs incurred, including the report and engineering and construction, were just under $45,000. And the town is to pay 100% of those costs and funded from the Water Main Reserve Fund. The recommendations before you tonight, that report PWES 2023-47 be received, and that bylaw 2023-71 being a capital drain levying bylaw to provide for the collection of construction drainage assessments for the McLean-Hergot drain approved by bylaw 2021-77 be given first, second, third, and final reading. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Very good. Moved by Councillor Dorner, supported by Councillor Higginson. Any questions? All in favor? Opposed, and that carries. Thank you. Item D, we have the next one is a DMAF Phase 1 Scully, St. Mark's Pump Station and Riverside Drive Construction Award of Engineering Consulting Services. Mr. Bartnick.
Thank you, Your Worship. So similar to the reports earlier this evening, this report before you is for the Scully St. Mark's Pump Station replacement, but is the award of the engineering consulting services during the construction period. A request for proposal was posted on the town's bid and tenders account and closed on June 1st of this year, where the town received only one proposal. It was from Dillon Consulting Limited. The RFP was reviewed by the selection committee and evaluated the proposal on its own merit according to the evaluation criteria, and the proposal was deemed acceptable and satisfied the RFP requirements. The engineering consulting services during construction will include contract admin and inspection, quality control, and commissioning services. The tentative schedule is in keeping with the DMAF program deadlines of March 31st, 2028, with construction to commence in 2023 and end in late 2024 or early 2025. Dillon Consulting's proposal of $941,056 is below the budgeted amount for the engineering consulting services within the overall project's allocated budget. And the recommendations before you this evening is that council award the engineering consulting services for the Scully St. Mark's Pump Station replacement and Riverside Drive East reconstruction project in the amount of $941,056 to Dillon Consulting Limited as an irregular result under the Town of Tecumseh Purchasing Policy and Schedule A of Bylaw 2021-60. And that a bylaw be prepared to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement satisfactory and informed of the town solicitor with Dillon Consulting Limited. If there is any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Good. We have a motion to put the report on the floor, moved by Councillor Tonio, supported by Councillor Houston. Any questions on the report? All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you, Mr. Bartnick. And your last report, I think, is item E, the asphalt paving tender award.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think there's one more after that too. See, but yeah, so the 2023 asphalt paving tender award. So the program had the following components. We were looking at paving Mayrand Crescent, the full extent, Shawnee Road from Maisonneuve to intersection, and the Lacoste Park parking lot. There were recent changes since the capital works plan was adopted in early January. Lacoste Park was to be delayed for at least 1 year, and that was due to the grandstand renovations as well as an additional review to the parking lot configuration. The other change was the work that the MTO was conducting on the Highway 401 8th Concession Road Bridge. They did some repair work on the bridge and some asphalt program. They did identify some deficiencies in the town's road, which extended by about 65 meters from their project. So we saw that as a good opportunity to coordinate with them. So there were 2 tender submissions that the town received on June 1st. The 2 main paving companies locally, GIP Paving Inc. And Melam Corporation. The 2023 asphalt program had identified a budget of $650,000 $417,000 was allocated for roadworks, $233,000 was for the parking lot. The roadworks were over the $417,000 budget by $316,690 for a total of $733,690. These unit prices were significantly higher than those that we received in 2022, but they do appear to be in line with more recent tenders that the town has put out, as well as the tender prices that the MTO had as part of their bridge rehabilitation work. And they're generally in line with the increases that we've been seeing in the industry as of late. The recommendations before council tonight is that the tender for the 2023 asphalt paving in the amount of $681,000, excluding HST, be awarded to GIP Paving Inc. And that bylaw 2023-72 be given first, second, third, and final reading to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement satisfactory in form to the town solicitor with GIP Paving Inc. And further, that project allocations reflecting a budget for the roadworks component of the asphalt paving program of $733,690 with a $316,690 increase to the original allocation be funded from the road life cycle reserve. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Move the recommendation. Moved by Councillor Higgins, supported by Councillor Houston. Councillor Houston has a question. Go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, through you to Phil. Just being that much over on a few amount of roads, right? I think I know the answer, but what is the impact, right? Moving forward, should, the increases follow? And I don't even think we would know exactly what that number is, but with just a few roads being done this year, and we've got many, many other roads, and being that much over, almost, what is it, 85% or so over. It just concerns me to see an increase of that magnitude, but just maybe some comments on that overall.
Thank you, through you, your worship, to Councillor Houston. Very good question. It is concerning to see the prices continue to increase. We are very selective in our asphalt paving program, and where we can find efficiencies, we try to. And I think you see that in us trying to consolidate other infrastructure projects, whether it's road construction, along with underground works, whether it's sewers or water mains. When it comes to the paving program, we are selective in our streets and the repair mechanism as well. The two streets and the length of the streets may be short when you look at the map or look at the look at those lengths, but you also have to take into account the volume of the asphalt that's being used as well, right? And so there's some instances, some roads only need a 2-inch mill and pave, and then there's others that get a more extensive where they get down to the 4-inch mill and pave, right, where they're doing 2 layers of asphalt. I believe in both of these instances, they are the deeper repair mechanism. So short extents, but large volume of asphalt that we're seeing. But definitely moving forward, we're going to have to be very selective on the roads that get paved. The one thing I would note, we do, as part of our asset management plan, we do have a policy that identifies a paving condition index of 70 that we have to try to maintain. In our last roads need study that was completed in 2019 did identify that we were exceeding that value, right? So I think we're at a PCI of about 75 or 76. So we've maintained our roads very well, and we hope to continue that in the future, but we'll definitely have to keep an eye on the costs.
Yep. One suggestion, Mr. Bartnick, I know at the County of Essex, there's an opportunity, and maybe check with Mr. Botham or Mr. Beal, where they allow the lower tier municipalities to piggyback with their bulk rate. And I know they had a partnership with the town of Essex, which saved them $600,000 annually. And what they suggested was that the municipalities submit their projects in the fall, September, October. And I don't know how that program works, but you may basically say these are the projects or these are the amount of work or asphalt that we're planning to do in 2024. And you might find substantial savings right there, just on that quick thing. So again, it was one of those things that was offered to the town of Essex, and we asked the question, and it says yes, it's available to anyone that wants to participate. So I would look into that if possible. All right, did we have a motion, I believe, on the floor, Mr. Alger? Okay, we'll vote on the report. All in favor? Opposed, and that carries. Thank you. And the next one is the report. Let's see here, the tender crack sealing, the amount, the crack sealing and tender award. Bill, yeah, Mr. Barton.
Thank you, Your Worship. So there were 3 tender submissions received on June 8th. Fine Line Marketing Incorporated was the low tenderer. The low tender is $165,534 under the $300,000 budget. Works are scheduled to commence in July and August. The recommendations within the report is that the tender for the 2023 crack sealing in the amount of $132,140 be awarded to Fine Line Marketing Incorporated, and that by law 2023-73 be given first, second, third, and final reading, to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement satisfactory and form to the town solicitor with Fine Line Marketing Incorporated. If there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
It's pretty straightforward. Moved by Councillor Dorner, supported by Councillor Jobin. Any questions? All in favor? And that carries. Thank you. And I believe the next one we approved earlier, the source water protection, that was item G. So I'll turn it over to Mr. Oji to take us home under bylaws.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The following bylaws are proposed for first and second reading this evening. Bylaw 2023-066, retail businesses open on holidays. 23-067, active transportation fund, multi-use recreational trails, Les Bronx Road to Little River. 23-069, fourth concession drain. 23-071, amendments to drainage assessment schedules. 23-072, tender award for asphalt paving. 23-073, tender award for crack sealing. 23-074, disaster mitigation and adaptation fund, Scully and St. Mark's Pump Station and Riverside Drive reconstruction, tender award. 23-075, tender award for Cata Library renovation project. And 23-076, procedural bylaw, first and second readings. Additionally, Mr. Deputy Mayor, if it's also council's pleasure this evening that all of the bylaws just referenced, with the exception of 23-76 being the procedural bylaw, be also considered for a third and final reading tonight, together with bylaw 23-043, and that's on the 11th concession drain, which is noted specifically for third and final reading.
Have a motion? Moved by Councillor Higginson, supported by Councillor Tonio. All in favor? Opposed? That carries. Thank you. Okay, so to clarify, that was first and second reading. Now we have another motion for third final reading. Moved by Councillor Houston, supported by Councillor Jobin. All in favor? Opposed? And that carries. Finish business now. Okay, we're moving on to unfinished business. Are there any items? Unfinished business, seeing none. New business. Councillor Tonio.
Just a quick question for Mr. Bartnick. Do we have a time frame for Les Bronx opening at all?
Thank you, Your Worship. Through Councillor Tonio, we were looking at putting out a notice shortly. They still have some works that are remaining, and I think the recent weather has pushed the paving program back a little bit, but I believe we're hoping either first or second week in July. So we're hoping for some better weather this upcoming week.
Any others? We have one from our clerk, Mr. OJ.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor, and my apologies. I'm not sure if this is unfinished business or new business, but with your permission, I was hoping to provide a brief update to council on the Golden Age Club user agreement. Council will recall that back at the May 9th meeting, council endorsed the Golden Age Club user agreement and also authorized the initiation of a review period for the club to review and execute the agreement, and for administration to return with the signed agreement under bylaw. So I can report that that agreement was provided to representatives of the club well over 6 weeks ago now. During that 6-week time period, administration made numerous efforts to follow up on the status, and on a couple of occasions also offered to meet with representatives of the group in order to walk through the agreement, answer any concerns or issues that they may have. It really wasn't until about a week and a half ago that we heard from representative of the clubs who asked to forward the agreement to their legal counsel so that their legal counsel can review. So we've done that. And then just yesterday, we received feedback with some proposed additions from their legal counsel. So we're just reviewing through those proposed changes, which essentially just require some further clarifications. Now that it's been reviewed, though, we still expect to have a final signed copy in short order, together with the authorizing bylaw to come back to council. And we're still hopeful at this point that would be at the July 11th meeting.
Thank you. That was just for an update. Ms. Geniak, did you have anything to add? Okay, very good. Thank you. Yep, on the Mr. OJ.
Yep. Through you, Deputy Mayor, to Mr. OJ and maybe to Ms. Geniak. If I recall, we kind of had a hard deadline, right, on that. So recognizing that we're kind of working back and forth right now, I believe that hard deadline, is it already passed?
Yes, through Deputy. Yes, the hard deadline has in fact passed, and we did communicate that to the Golden Age Club on several occasions.
So I'm just questioning if we should, if there's anything we would need to do to kind of amend, because we had passed a motion, I believe, that indicated a hard deadline. We're past that. So I don't know if it's appropriate or would be required at all. Because we are working back and forth, I would be fine with saying, if we do not have anything in place by next council meeting, that is the hard deadline. And if I remember, I think it was, no access until we had that. So I'm fine with extending it. We're working back and forth, but at some point we need to have an agreement. And I'm just a little concerned we're already past that, hard deadline. So I'm just wondering what may be appropriate.
I'll take that one.
Ms. Evans?
So very good points, Councillor Houston, through you, Deputy Mayor. We have deliberated on this. It's a sensitive matter, and we are trying to be reasonable in the circumstance. And in light of the news that they had secured legal counsel, we decided to tread very carefully and allow for the opportunity for their legal counsel to review the document. And those harder measures would have been taken had they not reached out yesterday, as Mr. OJ has indicated. But since they have, we feel now that there's, we need to give an allowance of time to communicate back through their legal counsel. But certainly, to your point, if the thing isn't resolved by July 11th, we will be back to council for further action.
Okay, thank you for the status update, Mr. OJ. Are there any other, Ms. Geniak, go ahead.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor and members of council. It's my pleasure to remind everyone and to share information that this Monday, July 3rd, is an important commemorative dedication ceremony at Lakewood Park North on the beach. There's a wonderful new carving of Chief Tecumseh. that has been there for the past number of weeks. And on Monday, Patricia Shawnoo and direct descendants of Tecumseh will be here, and the Ogachara Society will be joining us for a ceremony from 11 till 12:30 p.m. And we, of course, invite all of you and all members of the community who are interested in celebrating and commemorating the Indigenous heritage of our community to please come and join us.
Very good. Thank you.
Miigwech.
Thank you. Well done. And also on the radio, the July 1st, Lakewood Park, a lot of activities and things going on. So that's getting a lot of media attention. So I anticipate they're going to run out of hot dogs. So thank you. Are there any other new business? Okay, we're moving on to motions. Confirmatory bylaw, that the bylaw 2023-077 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the June 27th regular meeting of council be given a first, second, third, and final reading. Moved by Councillor Dorner, supported by Councillor Higginson. All in favor, opposed, and that carries. Any notices of motion? Haven't seen none. Our next meeting is July 11th at 5 p.m. We have a special council meeting, strategic priorities, a 7 p.m. regular council meeting. And that there be no further business. The meeting of the June 27th council be adjourned. Moved by Councillor Higginson, supported by Councillor Tonio. All in favor, opposed, and that carries. Thank you. All right.